Welcome to Living Life, the show that allows you to pursue things that make you happy, curious, and keep you open-minded. This is Living Life on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Welcome to Living Life, Sweets, Treats, and Eats on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. I'm Howie Morgasen. On this week's program, we're going to be talking about Thanksgiving treats. Thanksgiving is all about giving thanks. And we get family and friends together and we share memories from the year past. Last year, it was unfortunate, but because of the pandemic, we were not able to share Thanksgiving with family and friends. But this year, it's coming back in a big way, and we're looking forward to sharing Thanksgiving. For more information on the Empty the Bench Network and Living Life, you can look us up in social media at Living Life ETB. On this week's show, we have three things that we're going to be working on. First, we're going to be doing some baking. Next, we have a really nice sweet potato appetizer, and we'll end off with a very cheesy Thanksgiving turkey. So, let's get to baking. You're listening to Living Life, Sweets, Treats, and Eats on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Please check out some of the other great shows on Living Life, including Home Design Concepts with Tony Montori Jr., and Organize and Thrive with Camille Prunka. And there are other great shows on sports, entertainment, and more. For more information, follow us on social media at ETB Network. And now, on with the show. So let's talk about baking. When you think of baked goods, you think of big bakeries with lots of heavy machinery and bakers who have special skills and all kinds of difficult and complicated ingredients that are mixed together. And what comes out of it are these marvelous breads and cakes and desserts that you sample on a regular basis. But there's another part to baking, and that's home baking. And that's the thing that Grandma does, which has that incredible smell when you come into Grandma's house on the holidays to see what's going on. And that's what we're going to talk about today, which is home baking with a few choice ingredients and a couple of tools that you can turn out some incredible breads and cakes. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So baking, unlike other types of cooking, is a precise science, differing from other types of cooking where you put a little bit of this and a little bit of that and you come up with something that's really good. Baking requires measurements, accurate measurements, and also that you put things together in the right order in order for that chemical reaction to happen in the oven and for you to wind up with loaves and cakes. So part of it also would be the tools that you need in the kitchen. So let's look at some of those tools. Measuring is very important, and there's a couple of different things that you want to have in your kitchen to do measuring. The first one is a scale. And a scale is typically what you use to measure dry goods, and that's things like flour and salt and sugar. If you're putting fruits in, it's how you would measure fruits as well. Then you have measuring cups, and measuring cups are typically used for liquid measure like water or oil or milk that you would put into a recipe. In addition, you also have measuring spoons like these. And measuring spoons come in real handy for things like salt and pepper and other spices. So for instance, this is 1/8 of a teaspoon so that you can get precise measurements for what you're doing. It's very important to have that. The other thing is, the tools that you use. There are some small kitchen appliances that you can use for baking. Over here, I have my trusty stand mixer. It's been with me for years. And this is on the more expensive side, so not every kitchen has one of these. And you don't have to have one to do the baking that we're going to talk about today. You might have a hand mixer like this one over here, much less expensive, but also it's electric, so it takes some of the mixing chore out of what you're doing. And then if you want to do it the way Grandma used to do it, a mixing spoon and a bowl and a little horsepower, in order to get things done. So that's a little bit about the tools that you have in the kitchen. And next, we're going to make some sweet potato bread. And now let's do some baking. So this sweet potato pecan bread is a Thanksgiving favorite in my house. It's been so for years, and people look forward to having it. So the recipe is pretty straightforward. You'll notice that I have the ingredients spread out over here. Ingredients are split up into two categories. There's the wet ingredients, and then there's the dry ingredients. And there's one exception to that, which is the sugar. So you'll notice in a lot of recipes for baking that sugar is included with the wet ingredients. Other than that, you know, it's dry and wet. So we're going to put the ingredients together. So we'll start with the sugar, and we're going to put it into our stand mixer. Okay. Next ingredient to go in is water. All right. So what I wanted to tell you is, as I'm putting the oil in, is that this recipe is half the normal recipe, which I'm going to show you. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I only needed to make one loaf to sort of show you what it looks like. So I'm using half the ingredients. But the recipe that will be up over there, that's going to have the full ingredients as well as the link that you'll see in social media. So we have eggs that we'll put in, okay? And then we have the star of the show, which is the sweet potato. Okay, so now that's the wet ingredients. So we're going to turn the mixer on. And with anything that you do with mixing, with baking, always start slow. And the reason why is that if you cranked it up to full speed, there will be flour and egg and sweet potato all over your kitchen. And we don't want that to happen. So we start it at a slow speed and we let the ingredients mix. This is a good time to remind you that for social media, on Sweets, Treats, and Eats and other things on the Living Life Network, you can find us at Living Life ETV, and that's the Facebook and Twitter information for us, so make sure you check that out. So it looks like we're pretty well mixed here, so we'll just speed it up for a second just to make sure everything's incorporated. Okay, now we'll turn it off, and now we're going to go with the dry ingredients. Sorry about that. So we start with flour. And then we have cinnamon, baking powder, baking soda, salt, and then the other star of the show, which are the chopped pecans. All right, I'll just make sure we're engaged here. And then we'll mix slowly. Okay, we'll speed it up a little, just to make sure that it's mixed together well. And then one other thing we're going to do is I'm going to turn this off for a second. I'm going to lift it up. And what I'll do is I'll take these two guards off because we don't need them anymore. And now what I'm going to do is just scrape down the sides of the bowl to make sure that we get all the dry ingredients included. Okay, then we'll put it down and we'll mix it up again just to make sure that everything is incorporated the way it should be. And so this is a pecan bread, and it has nuts in it. So the standard sort of warning that I give on all recipes that have nuts in it is to please be careful if you have people in your family that have nut allergies. This would not be the right recipe. You really can't substitute anything for it because it's a nut bread. So I would just stay away from this one. All right, so it looks like we are mixed. That looks good. And now we have our baking pans over here. So the first thing we'll do is we'll take off the mixer. So put that to the side. And take our bowl. There we go. And then we're going to fill our loaf pan. And then we're going to fill our small loaf pan. All right, and there you have it. So they're going to go in a 350-degree oven, 90 minutes or so. Check it after an hour to make sure that it's starting to get done. And we'll be back to show you what the breads look like. Okay, the breads are done. And so when they were done, we took them out of the oven, put them on a warming rack, and let them cool down for about 10 minutes, and then took them out of the loaf pan and let them cool some more. And here we go. So there's a small one over there. Here's the larger one, which I started to slice into to make up a platter. And we'll slice a couple of more slices so you can get a chance to see what it looks like. So there we go. And I also wanted to remind you that you can see pictures of the loaf, and more information on today's show by checking us out on social media at Living Life ETB, Facebook and Twitter. So coming up next, we're going to get into muffins, and we're going to do some special Thanksgiving muffins. We're going to do pumpkin and cranberry. So stay tuned for those.
You're watching Living Life, Sweets, Treats, and Eats on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. If you're looking for a new favorite podcast in the areas of sports, pop culture, or news and entertainment, you should check out some of the fresh voices and fresh perspectives on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at ETB Network. Again, that's both on Facebook and Twitter at ETB Network. The Empty the Bench Podcast Network. We're more than just sports.
So welcome back. I just wanted to remind you, you're watching Sweets, Treats, and Eats. It's part of Living Life on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. And you can check us out on social network at ETB Network. So now we're ready to make those scrumptious pumpkin cranberry muffins. And so what I did to sort of save some time is you can see I have the mixing bowl here from my mixer. So I took the ingredients, which you see here, and I put them all together and I mixed them. And what you can see here is the batter that's ready to go. So now that we have the batter, what we're going to do is we're going to put it in the muffin pan that we have here, put it in a 350-degree oven for about 12 minutes, and we're going to get some really nice mini muffins. So how do we get the muffins from the bowl into the muffin tin? We use these things over here. So this is called a disher, but you might know it as an ice cream scooper, and it comes in a lot of different sizes. So the size we're going to use is this one here, which is a pretty small one, but since we're making small muffins, that's what we need. So it's very simple. We'll take our batter, which we have here, and we're just going to scoop it out, and so there's cranberries in it and the rest of the ingredients. And we're just going to sort of drop it in like that. And we're going to go across. And we're going to fill it up. While I'm doing that, I also wanted to remind you that you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Living Life ETB. So if you want to know more about the show and you want to see links and you also want to see behind the scenes thing, that's where you go to check that out. So I'm going to continue filling up this muffin tin over here, and then I'm going to put it in that 350-degree oven. It's going to cook for about 12 minutes, and when we come back, I will show you what our muffins look like. So we'll see you in a bit. Welcome back. And as you can see, our muffins are out of the oven, and so I just wanted to show you what the muffins look like. And so these are rustic. Like most of the baking that you will do at home, it's not about perfection, it's about how good they are. And these actually look pretty good. All right, they're different sizes and heights and stuff like that. But let me tell you, when you bite into these muffins, it's all delicious. So you can see here, I have the muffin tin that I took the muffins out of. I just want to give you a note about cooking times, because there's a lot of things that go into what cooking time is for baking something like muffins. Every oven is different from the standpoint of how long it takes to cook things. It's also the flour, how much moisture is in it. So there's a whole bunch of things that actually go into the time it takes to bake the muffins. So I would say that anywhere from 12 to 17 minutes, depending on the combination of things that affect the time it takes to bake. So keep that in mind when you're baking, and I would check in on the muffins after 5 minutes, see how they're doing, and then every 5 minutes after until you see that they're done. And you can always take a toothpick, and put it into the center of one of the muffins, and if it comes out clean, you're all set to go, and if it comes out wet, another couple of minutes, and you'll be all set. So I also wanted to remind you that you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Living Life ETB. And so when we come back, we're going to take a look at a very cheesy turkey. So we'll see you in a little bit. All right, so now we're going to make that very cheesy Thanksgiving turkey. As you can see here, I have the cheese ball, which is the base. But now let me take you through how I made this cheese ball. So first I started with my food processor, and I put in the cream cheese, the goat cheese, the butter, and I mixed that all together in the food processor, make sure it was well combined. After I did that, I took the spices, the garlic powder, the chives, the parsley, the salt and pepper, and I put those in the food processor. I mixed it again. Before I went on, I took the cover off the food processor, and I pushed down the sides to make sure all the cheese was mixed well and the spices were combined, and then I ran it one more time. So now we had it all mixed up, and now I'm going to put that in a bowl and put that off to the side, clean my food processor, and now I put the pecans in there, and I grate the pecans to breadcrumb consistency. So just a note, if you have nut allergies here, instead of using the pecans as the coating, you could use pretzels. So put pretzels in the food processor, grind it up to like breadcrumbs, and then you can use that for it. So now you have the cheese and you have the pecans. The next step, you probably want to put some gloves on because it's a little bit messy. So you're going to take the cheese that you put in the bowl, and you're going to form it into a ball the best you can. And then once you have it in a ball, you're going to put it on the tray that you have the pecans in, and you're going to roll it in the pecans. And you're going to cover it all up. Once you do that, you'll put that cheese ball on a dish. You put that dish in the refrigerator for about an hour till it gets firm. And then we're ready to decorate it. And we're going to show you how to decorate it right after this. So now we have our cheese ball, and what we now have are the decorations that we're going to put on top. So let me go through the decorations before we start. I have some pretzel rods. I have some regular pretzel twists. I have some veggie straws, some pecans, and some different color peppers to work with. So those are the ingredients. You could use your own as well if you think about it. But now let's sort of start putting things on here and see what it looks like. So the first thing we're going to do is we have the face. So I did a little work beforehand, but you can see there's a piece of red pepper. There's a piece of yellow pepper for the beak. And then the two eyes might look familiar. They're from the Halloween show that we did. So that's the face for the turkey, and we're going to put that right up front, like that. And then we start building our turkey. So the first thing we're going to do is take the pecans, and we're just going to form like the wings. Okay, then we'll take some to the other side. And since the cheese ball is softer because you took it out of the refrigerator, then going into it's going to be really simple to do. So that's the first row. Next, we're going to take some of the pretzel twists and we're going to push those in. As I said, if you do the pre-work and you get it soft, it's very simple to do. The next thing we'll do is we will take some of the peppers, different colors. We have orange, yellow, and red, and we'll start pushing those in. It actually looks pretty cool. There's an orange one. Let's see if we'll take yellow. And maybe one more red. There we go. Okay, now behind that, we'll take some pretzel sticks. So it's really making it look, like all the feathers that the turkey has. We're trying to create that sort of illusion. And then the last piece is we'll take some veggie straws, different colors. And we'll sort of plug those in the back here. All right, so doesn't that look great? And there's other things that you can do as well. You can take other pieces or other things that you want to put in there. Remember, for nut allergies, if you don't want to use pecans, you can use sliced radishes, sliced carrots to substitute for it, and you would have a nut-free turkey. So I'm going to give you a link to this recipe, and in the recipe there's going to be a picture so you can get an idea of what the finished turkey would look like.
You're watching Living Life, Sweets, Treats, and Eats with Howie Morgasen on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. For more information on this show, along with Organize and Thrive with Camille Pranka and Home Design Concepts with Tony Montori Jr., follow Living Life on Facebook and Twitter at Living Life ETB for all behind-the-scenes access, outtakes, pictures, and more. Living Life is all about stepping out beyond your comfort zone and taking chances. For other great shows on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network, including sports, entertainment, news, and more, follow us on social media on Facebook and Twitter at ETB Network.
So we just finished that great turkey cheese ball. Can't wait to dig into it. You're really going to love it a lot. And now we're in the home stretch, and we're going to make this really nice sweet potato appetizer. And it's really a takeoff on a dish that my family has enjoyed over the years, called the sweet potato casserole. And that's made up of pieces of sweet potato, this gooey syrup, and smothered with marshmallows and melted over the top. It's really an amazing side dish. What I've done is given you a bite-sized version of that casserole that you can put together as an appetizer. And it's really simple. And it's based on 4 ingredients. So it's based on sweet potatoes, a butter maple sauce, marshmallows, and pecans. So why don't we put it together? So we start out with a baking dish, actually a cookie sheet that's sprayed so it doesn't stick. And then we're going to take the sweet potatoes and just lay them out on here, side to side. And once we do that, once we have them all laid out, I have this great sauce that I put together that we're going to put over them. And that sauce is based on maple syrup and butter. What could be bad about that? So as we have these laid out here, okay, what we'll do now is we'll take our sauce and a basting brush and basically put it over the top of each one. Slather it over it. And then what we're going to do, once we have it all slathered over, is we're going to put these in a preheated 400-degree oven for about 20 minutes or so. And then we're going to come back and we're going to finish up the recipe. So we'll see you then. Okay, we are back, and as you can see, our sweet potatoes have been cooked. So the next thing we have to do is sprinkle a little bit of salt on all the sweet potatoes. Not that much, just a little bit. Okay, and now the marshmallows. So what we do is we take these standard marshmallows, we press them a little bit to make them flat, and then we put them on top of each of the sweet potato slices we have. That way they can melt evenly. And what we're going to do is we're going to put them back in the oven, but this time under the broiler for a minute or two. You have to watch this because these things can burn quickly. So we're going to continue doing this. And then when they come out, we're going to put a pecan half on each one. And then we're going to show you the finished dish when we do the recap, which is coming up next. So stay with us. Welcome back to Living Life, Sweets, Treats, and Eats on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. I'm Howie Morgasen. Well, we've done it. And as you can see by this bountiful table in front of us, we're ready for Thanksgiving. So let's talk a little bit about what we prepared for you on this episode. So we start out with this really great sweet potato pecan bread. And I will tell you, as a leftover in the toaster with a little butter, it's phenomenal, so you need to try that out. Second, we made these great cranberry pumpkin muffins. Very Thanksgiving. And these are great as well. We also made some corn muffins, and although you didn't see corn muffins on the episode, this was just basically going out to the supermarket, getting that box of corn muffin mix, and popping it in the oven. It gives us a little bit of variety on the table, so we did that as well. And then you have the star attraction in the center of the table here, which is our very cheesy Thanksgiving turkey. And you can see it's all dressed up, and we put crackers around it, and it's ready for people to dive into it. And then the last dish we have over here is our sweet potato appetizer. That's with the sweet potato and the marshmallows and the pecans. It's ready to just dig in. So I hope you like all of that. I also want to wish all of you a very, very happy Thanksgiving as we come together again, because we haven't done it in a year. With family and friends, I wish you all the best. Next on the program, we'll be doing a couple of things. We're going to do some vignettes about Hanukkah. We're going to talk about potato latkes and applesauce and all that good stuff for Hanukkah. And then our next big program is the Christmas episode, which we're working on for December. Lots of good stuff to eat on that one. So I just want to make sure I thank you and wish you a happy Thanksgiving. I think I'm going to try this cranberry pumpkin muffin. That is awesome. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you soon.